Rejoice and be glad in it. Can you hear me now? It is wonderful again to be here with you today and to bring you just a little bit more of God's message. I'm going to continue on our study of the book that I started reading until I return. And it's about the 12 things that Jesus wants every believer to know. And I'm enjoying the book so far. I'm just reading a chapter ahead as we go through. And so we'll continue this on for 12 weeks as long as I like the book. This chapter is entitled Words of Comfort. Last week we looked at Don't Be Afraid. Today we're going to look at Don't Stop Trusting. And then next week, Lord willing, we will look at You Are Not Alone. Back in the early 90s, a friend of ours from Iceland had moved to North Dakota. And we had gone down there to Rapid City to see her. And I think it was east of Rapid City is this massive water park. It's mostly a pool. It's probably as wide, the pool was wide as this building, and probably as long as the whole building. And it was fed by a spring. And it was a nice warm pool. The bottom of it was rock because it was built on top of the hot springs, and the water just flowed through. I think they said that it would, if you dumped it, it would fill itself back up 6 times in a day. This pool, and the one end of it was shallow for kids. It had this really tall slide that you could get up on, and you got on this little mat, and it would take you off, and when you hit the water you were skimming it, and so you just skimmed across the top of the water. But it was a shallow pool for the kiddies. Then they had a middle section where you could get in. That took up probably half the pool. Then there was another section that was for life raft or floaties that you could sit around in. And then the last end of it was deep for the diving boards. And the kids are all playing down in the shallow end, and Kathy and I were in the floating, on the inner tubes. And we were watching the kids and everything, and all of a sudden we see Victoria come running down the edge of the pool. And it's like, oh no. We knew exactly, both of us, what she was about to do. And so we started paddling over to the side of the pool, and we weren't going to make it in time, so Kathy, being the better swimmer, jumps off and starts swimming, and Tori gets to the edge of the pool where we are, and there she goes. 4 years old, whatever, 8 years old that she was, but she trusted in her parents that we would be there and we would catch her and, not let her drown. And that's what we're going to talk about this morning is trust. I want to go back to John 13, verse 33 again, and it's kind of like what this is being based off of, this series. And again, Jesus is referring to the disciples that are with him as little children because they do not understand what is going on. Okay, as we have seen, and we'll see it again this morning. He refers to them as little children, yet a little while I am with you. In other words, he's telling them, I'm leaving you. Okay? In fact, this is going to be the last night that he's going to be with them. And they, again, do not truly understand who Jesus is and what he's going to do and everything. And they're going to find out in the next day. You will seek me. And just as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I'm going, you cannot come. And they think that he's just going to another city, and he's not going to let them come. Okay, and we'll see that later. But this morning we are going to be talking about trust issues. Do you have trust issues? We all probably do for one thing or another. We might have trust issues towards people or things, like we talked about last week, flying, maybe cars or boats, or maybe animals. Maybe you have, trust issues with dogs or snakes. But we all have trust issues of some sort. But our great country was founded on trust. Do we still believe in that? In God we trust. That is stamped on our currency. That's what our country was based on, was in God we trust. But there are billions who don't believe in God, and they surely don't trust in God. Some of those want to get these statements taken off of our currency because they do not believe in God. How can they believe in a God that they can't prove or won't prove? I say, look around you and you see the proof around us. God does exist. They can't believe in a God that promises to take us to this so-called heaven that we can't see. How can we trust a Savior who we can't see, have heard, or have met? Do we still have a problem with trusting people today? You might recognize these sayings. I'll believe it when I see it. Don't count your chickens until they are hatched. The check is in the mail. Sorry, you have to show me the money. Okay? We have trust issues. We lose faith in people when we are scammed or we are lied to, or they treat us badly, or we can't trust the people at their word. Remember when we used to have to do, when all we had to do was shake somebody's hand and it was a done deal? You trusted that person that they were going to keep their word, whatever it was, with just a handshake. But not today. Today we have to have a lawyer, to draw up a contract, and we have to go in there and both sign this contract in front of a notary public and agree to what it is that we're going to do, so that whatever this agreement is legally binding. It probably will come soon to where you have to prick your finger and put a drop of blood by your name, to prove that's you. Okay, so they can do DNA testing, to verify it. But we don't trust each other anymore. Why? Because a lot of people out there have betrayed us in the past, and others are still trying to betray us. I knew somebody who, her boyfriends that she was dating would dump her on Valentine's Day or the day before, so they wouldn't have to buy her anything for Valentine's Day. And she had a couple do that, to where she didn't trust boyfriends anymore, especially when Valentine's Day rolled around. But that's how people are. We don't trust them. But we as Christians cannot stop trusting. So how do we live in a world in where not trusting is the standard operating procedure? It is hard for us to believe in what we hear, what we see, what we taste. We think that we're drinking real juice, but when you read it, it's imitation juice, imitation flavors. Every Wednesday night on the way to church, I stop and I get a pound of crab salad or seafood salad. But when you turn it around and you read it, there's no crab in it. It's all imitation crab, So it's getting to where we can't trust anybody, what they say. We can't trust anything we read, anything we hear. Do we trust everything we read on the internet? No. We can't trust hardly anything you buy on the internet. I went out to Crystal's yesterday to replace her water pump and thermostat, which on a BMW are not normal, just little pieces of, that you take off and put on. It's a whole big plastic unit. And so I spent half the day getting this all apart, and I held up the old one to the new one. And it's like, no, they're not the same, Even though they told her in the description this would fit her 5 whatever BMW, it didn't. And the water pump looked different, So you can't believe anything hardly, what we read and see and hear these days. And so it's hard for us to have trust in anything. But we as Christians have to have trust. We need to trust God. We need to trust Jesus. We need to trust the Bible. We need to trust each other. Even though we get hurt over and over again. How many of you go to the grocery store and you check your receipt to make sure you didn't get double charged for something when you're the one who checked yourself out? Catherine would do that to make sure she didn't ring something up twice. But we've got to trust people. John 14:1. Let not, again, this is Jesus talking to his disciples. Let not your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. Don't be troubled. Don't worry. Don't fret. Don't despair. Don't lose hope. Don't lose faith. Don't lose trust. Believe or trust in the Heavenly Father above, and also believe and trust in His Son, Jesus Christ. In God, we do trust. We do trust in God and Jesus only when everything in life is going just right. Does our trust and belief slip when our life starts to slide sideways or downhill, or we stumble? Do we slip backwards a little when our life hits a brick wall due to a job loss or a death in the family or divorce, or when the winds of doubt blow us down? I guarantee that every one of us at one time or another has had doubts. Days when we lost our trust in God. Somebody stated that doubts are the dumbbells of faith that must be lifted and lowered countless times in order to build the muscles of true belief. Facing doubt and examining one's core beliefs is tough work. God never promised us smooth sailings in life. Look at Abraham. He promised that the world would be blessed through his seed. But then God tells Abraham to take his son up on the mountain and offer him as a sacrifice. Did Abraham lose his trust and faith and belief in God? No. He laid his son out on the altar, had the knife up to kill his son when the angel stopped him. Look at Noah. God tells him to build this large ark. What is that, Lord? You know, he lives out in the desert. He probably doesn't even know what a boat is. But he believed God and trusted God, and for 125 years, he builds this monstrosity out in the desert, probably getting ridiculed by all of his neighbors and everybody that walks by. This is what? What do you build? Why are you doing this? Until the rain started. Then Noah knew he had done right. And then Job had everything. Thousands of head of livestock, children, a wife. It was perfect until the devil took it all away. Now he's in the ashes, sackcloth. His three friends are there to help encourage him, and they turn against him and tell him to forsake God, give up on God. Look where you're at. Look what's happened to you. But Job held in there and was rewarded for his faith and trust in God. Let's go back to that upper room. Jesus has just told his disciples that he is going to leave them. We can only imagine what was racing through their minds. We have already read where they thought he was going to another city or town without them. Fear is setting in when Jesus states that they can't go with him. They are probably thinking, what are we going to do? How are we going to face the Jews alone? But some are ready to fight. Jesus told Peter in John 13 that he was going to deny him 3 times before morning. And Peter stated, "No way, Lord, I would die before I deny you." And of course, we know that Peter will deny Christ 3 times before the rooster welcomes in the morning. Peter goes as far as to deny that he even knew Christ. I am not a follower of a man that I do not know. What about us? Where do we stand in our belief and our trust in God and Jesus? Where do we stand? Don't stop trusting. Who did Jesus claim to be? He claimed to be the Son of God, and that's what put him where he is at this night in that upper room. Because the Jews said that he was blasphemy to claim that he was the Son of God. But that's who he claimed to be, and we know that he was. In John 14, 5 through 6, Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going, and how can we know the way? And Jesus said to him, I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. This is a big statement that Jesus just made. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one, and that means no one, comes to the Father except through me. And some might ask, who is this Jesus that makes that kind of a statement that nobody could go to heaven except through him? That is one reason I think that there are so many different kinds of churches out there, was because they could not wrap their head around this statement that you can only go to heaven through Jesus. And so they have come up with all these other ways that you can get to heaven without having to go through this person. Okay? The problem is that Jesus is the only answer to that equation. Matthew 10, verse 33, but whoever denies me before men, him I will also deny before my Father who is in heaven. Matthew 28, verse 18, and Jesus came and spoke to them, saying, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. So what does Jesus claim to be? He claims to be the Son of God. This is not all the things that Jesus claims to be in the Scriptures, but this is the only one I'm going to bring up this morning for time. I think you get the picture of who Jesus is. But what does Jesus do to prove his claims? First and foremost, he rose from the grave 3 days after being put there, just as he said he would do. In Matthew 12, verse 40, for as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. John 2, verses 18 and 19, so the Jews answered and said to him, what sign do you show to us, since you do these things? Jesus answered and said to them, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up again. And remember, when he's hanging on the cross, people come by and ridicule him and said, oh, you said that you would build the temple in 3 days. Take yourself down if you've got that much power. Okay? Mark 8:31, and he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and scribes and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. Jesus prophesied about his death and resurrection in several different ways. Jesus proved his claims about who he claimed to be. How can we not trust him? In John 20, verse 27, then Jesus said to Thomas, reach your finger here and look at my hands, and reach your hand here and put it into my side. Do not be unbelieving, but believing. And remember, when Jesus rose from the dead and he walked down to where his disciples were, he had already shown all of them his scars. And then Thomas was somewhere else, and when he came in, he said, well, I'm not going to believe until I do this, until I see the scars. And that's what Jesus is doing here, is having him put his hands on the scars to prove who he was. What else did Jesus prove? How else did Jesus prove his claim to who he was? Trust in me. I am the way. I am the truth, and I am the light. In his popular description of the process in his book, Evidence That Demands a Verdict, Josh McDowell writes that there is more factual, historical substantiation for the existence of Jesus than for the existence of Plato and Socrates put together. Take all the information we have of Plato and Socrates, put that together. does not equal the information, the proof that we have that Jesus existed. Funny, isn't it? People will believe just about anything unless you put the word Bible or Jesus or God in the sentence. Then all of a sudden, they don't believe it. But Jesus proved beyond a doubt that he was who he said he was. When has Jesus let us down? Is Jesus trustworthy? That's the ultimate credibility question, isn't it? It encompasses judgment, both character and integrity. Do you trust somebody that you just met? I have a tendency to trust people until they have proven that they're not trustworthy. Other people, because they have been hurt so much through their life, don't trust anybody at the beginning. And you've got to prove that you're trustworthy. Okay? And I think all of us would fall into one of those two categories. Either you trust off the bat or you don't. It is easy to trust somebody who has a good track record of being trustworthy compared to somebody that you just met who hasn't proven their trustworthiness. Jesus has never, ever, ever let anybody down and never will let anybody down. But wait a minute, Reed. My neighbor was involved in a head-on collision, killed the father, and put their daughter into a wheelchair for the rest of their life. And that actually happened to our first neighbor when we moved to Spokane back in '87. You know, remember, God is not a God of death. Satan is a ruler of death. God didn't do that. Satan did. And we need to remember that. When doubts plague the Christian's heart, they have a strange way of turning the choice of faith into a binary equation. Choose to believe in Jesus or choose not to believe in Jesus. Or when something tragic happens, either way, they will blame God or they don't. We can't let Satan get a toehold into our mental agony when things go wrong in our life. All Satan needs to do is plant the seed of doubt in your mind and in your heart, and he's going to run with it. We have to always trust God. We always have to put God first and remember that he is always there for us. John 6, verses 64 through 66. But there are some of you who do not believe. For Jesus knew from the beginning who they were, who did not believe, and who would betray him. And he said, therefore I have said to you that no one can come to me unless it has been granted to him by my Father. From that time, many of his disciples went back and walked with him no more. Jesus was talking to the Jewish Christians, and they took offense to Jesus' statement that he had made about the bread of life. And you would live forever if you ate this bread, and his flesh was this bread. And they took offense to that because they thought he was meaning that they had to eat his flesh like a cannibal. Okay? And because of that statement, because they did not understand that statement, they turned their back on Jesus and walked away. These Christians didn't trust Jesus anymore or his teachings because they misunderstood what he was teaching them. We all have the choice to follow Jesus or not to follow Jesus, to give our life totally to Jesus or not, to do everything we can to go to heaven or give up and not follow him. Like I've always said, we only have two choices, either God or the devil, heaven or hell, what's right or what is wrong. The choice is ours alone to make. As Jesus looked into the eyes of his weary disciples during that night long ago, did he know how long the world would have to wait for his ultimate return? He knew he'd be back in 3 days. But his second coming, did he know when that would be? No, he didn't. Jesus today still does not know when his Father is going to turn to him and say, son, go get your bride. We don't know. It could be today, tomorrow, next week, next year, 10 years from now, 100 years from now. But we can rest assured, we can trust in Jesus in that one day he will return. And the question is, are we ready for that day? Why not trust in Jesus? That might be a very easy answer to those who believe in God. The answer might not be as easy coming if we are on shaky ground with God. Look at Peter. I will die for you before I deny you, Lord. Cock-a-doodle-doo. And Peter had denied Jesus to the point of stating that he did not know that man. Ouch. Don't stop trusting in Jesus. Do not stop trusting in God. He has always been there and will always be there. He has our back. Again, next week, we will look at that you are not alone. If there's any way that we can help you this morning, please let your wishes be known. If you are having a trust issue, let us help you with that. Let us get you back on the right track. If you think that God has let you down, let us show you how he has not let you down, never has, never will. Or maybe you haven't put Christ on in baptism, and that's something that you need to do. We could take care of that problem as well. Please let your wishes be known as together we stand and sing.